Let's build a storage shelf for our Cleats system. It's simple butt construction, and each one of these shelves is connected with pocket hole screws. It's easy construction. Let me show you how to do it. The construction of the tall cabinet meant cutting up all of the individual pieces. The 4x8 sheet of plywood is much too large for cutting on the table saw, so I wound up cutting down small pieces with a track saw. You can use a circ saw if you don't have a track saw. Once the pieces were in more manageable size, I cut the 2 Gs, which are the sides of the cabinet, and all of the H's, which are the shelves. And the eyes, which are the top and bottom. I also use the table saw to cut the cleats, and those are called E. Lastly, the J, which is the back of the cabinet, was cut on the track saw. I then prepped each of the 6 shelves, which are marked H, with 8 pocket holes each. Now to lay out the tall cabinet, I've set both sides opposite each other and marked the positions of my shelves. Starting on one side, I used some scrap and clamps to hold the shelf in position. I then applied glue and secured that shelf in place with pocket screws. And I repeated this process with all 5 shelves. And on the top shelf, remember that the pocket holes are on top this time, not on the bottom. Leaving the completed side in that same position, I've applied glue to the edge of each one of the exposed shelves. Because the glue dries very quickly, I've temporarily attached the side with a brad nailer. And I'll make sure each one of the shelves lines up as I tack them. Now I flipped the entire assembly up on that side and raised it off the workbench with blocks. Again, using scrap pieces of material to hold the shelves in place, I can finish attaching them with pocket hole screws. So to attach the back, I've applied glue to all the exposed edges of the plywood and finally tacked that back on in place with a brad nailer. Using my router, I used a bottom-bearing pattern bit to clean off any overhangs. Lastly, a random orbit sander to smooth out all exposed edges. Now I'm using the cleats to temporarily raise this tall cabinet so that I get the spacing that I want to not only settle my top and bottom in position, but also to give it the elevation and the reveal I need on the top. Now I've applied some glue and used a brad nailer to tack it in place. I'll follow that up with some clamps. Now I'll repeat that process as I attach the top. Now I'm positioning the cleat at the top edge of the cabinet and affixing it with glue and screws. Finally, I'll round over the bottom edge of both the top and bottom pieces and lightly sand around to clean up all exposed rough marks. Now that the cabinet is on the wall, let me show you how to hang the second cleat. This is it here. So all I'm going to do is position it on that cleat and mark its location on the back of the cabinet. Then take this off, attach that cleat, and then put the whole thing back together again. So there you have it, the completed tall cabinet. It's a great place for storage. Construction is pretty basic, but it's exceptionally effective. And the nice part is, as your tool collection grows, we'll show you how to customize a whole bunch of tool storage that will fit nearly any woodworking style. Now for the charger cabinet, all I did was add a panel here, and these are Forstner bits for the holes. On the paper towel dispenser, again, same basic construction. This is a little cutout on the bottom edge to allow the paper towels to come out, and on the top I've divided this for glue storage. For the clamp racks and the wrenches and the hammers and as such, these are all the same construction, all done by cutting grooves in that Baltic birch. For the drill holders, again, these are separate pieces that were mounted with screws and glue. So for the screwdriver rack, all I did was position the placement of the screwdrivers, and on one half of this glued up piece, I cut slots in there. Then glued the pieces together so that now I have a display rack for the screwdrivers. And in the hardware storage, again, basic, same construction. The only difference here is that these pieces of Baltic birch started out as one. I use a Forstner bit to drill a hole through the middle and then cut them in half, so that I'm getting 2 of these supports for every piece of block that I started with. Now, mix and match these techniques to build a wall full of cabinets customized to your tool collection and woodworking style. Your shop can grow and change right along with you. Happy woodworking!